Okay, I'm Daniel Childress.
I'm Jeffrey Payne.
I'm Ian Iger.
And we have a circuit. It's a P controller. It gets its input voltage from these batteries. It passes through the process variable and a set point with gains right here. Before it goes into the gain, we have it go through these photoresistors. Photoresistors decrease in resistance when they're exposed to light, so that adjusts the voltage that passes through those. They go through the error op amp into the proportional, and then our power op amp is what actually turns our motor. It's just like the PID controller that we had, only it's the first half of it. We had originally started with the idea of using microphones, and the microphone would have required a couple extra bits to the circuit to make it work, but we could never get the actual microphone elements to give us any voltage at all. So we, at the last minute, gave up on that. We had photoresistors that we were using to test the functionality of the circuit. We just stuck with that. So, do you want me to walk through any more, or turn it on?
Let's see it work.
All right. So, turn it on, and it should track to a light source. If you turn the light around, it'll track to whichever photoresistor is receiving more voltage, or getting more, I guess, dropping more resistance. And the original idea was to hold on to that PID circuit that we had, but it disappeared. So we just had to rebuild this. It only took about an hour or so to go through and test it all. But,
On the second time through.
Yeah, second time through.
Well, why don't you talk about, because I know the background on this and I think it would be interesting, talk about your original intention to track sounds, use the microphones, and what those extra elements were, those circuits that you were having to deal with.
It would have been really cool, I think, if we were talking about it and this thing would have turned to face whoever was talking in our group. So the microphones were, and sound was what I wanted to use to operate this. A microphone element produces a voltage whenever it's, whenever sound waves hit it. And we would have sent that in, instead of using this to power signal through the photoresistors, we would have had the microphone element actually sending the signal voltage in here. It's really small. It's in the microvolt range, so we would have had to boost that way the heck up. We would have had a gain of at least 100.
And it's also DC, so we had to make a peak finder circuit to make it DC to be able to compare the two signals.
Yeah, sound waves, it oscillates just like you would see in an AC circuit. And because it oscillates and has highs and lows, to power this we only need the highs, because if we tried powering a motor with a DC motor with AC voltage, it doesn't do what it wants.
Did you get the peak detector to work?
We did get the peak detector to work. The peak detector is this part right here. If you wanted to come get a little bit closer, it is basically just composed of a capacitor, a diode, and a resistor. The capacitor is charged up every time it hits a high. The diode prevents the lows from feeding any negative or from pulling it back out. And then the resistor, whenever you take the power off, it allows the capacitor to drain. The bigger resistor, the longer the capacitor will hold the charge. We actually wanted the capacitor to, I may have turned it back off.
Yeah, you
turned it off. Okay.
Turn it back on.
Got to get over here. It's one of them. But
It was working.
yeah, you saw it.
We do have video.
We have video.
Is there any chance that something...
Oh, yeah, there you go. Our on-off switch is unplugged.
There you go. Oh, it's a cool kind of creepy.
We had a suggestion to get your face and cut it out and paste it on here. Would have been really cool, but we didn't get the suggestion.
We need to video there.
So maybe next time. Yeah. I think right here, the brightest light that it's reading is that one, because that's where it tends to turn.
Yeah, that wire's getting ramped up there.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any questions or any thoughts?
How bright does the light have to be?